Hi. Just to give you a little intro to me, I guess I've always felt like I was not so good at just interacting with people, and I was always sort of a nerd, and I wasn't really good at talking to people, but I was good at building things. And so I thought maybe there's some way I could kind of hack my way out of this situation. So I made this hat. The idea is it would detect if you're smiling, and if you stop smiling, it speaking of stop smiling. Oh, I guess that was the end of the video. Sorry. Let me try that again. If you stop smiling, it will stab you in the back of the head. And the idea is that it's meant to kind of reinforce my natural smiling by giving me some feedback. Hopefully I would be able to smile even when I wasn't wearing the hat. Inspired by things like Kelly Dobson's Scream Body, which is this device that allows you to capture a scream in a public place at a time when maybe it wasn't inappropriate, and then release it somewhere later where perhaps it is more appropriate. And so these tools make us laugh, but I think what we're reacting to is this underlying truth, that often we sort of want these things. But then on the other hand, what is this idea of fitting in? What are these behaviors we're trying to achieve? And I think of Pei Lin's design for Guiltless Excuses App. It was an app that could track which excuses you've used and who you've used them with, so you don't repeat the same one with the same person too often. It would also help you generate excuses. And then if you're feeling really guilty about making an excuse not to hang out with someone, it would offer the option to donate anonymously into the bank account of the friend that you just blew off. Or Scott Garner's Hell is Other People, which would use all of your Foursquare data and give you directions from wherever you are to wherever you want to go while avoiding all your friends and contacts. And so the thing here is, I think that interacting with people can be hard sometimes, and that technology can make it even more confusing at the worst of times. Joanne McNeil sort of drew attention to the emotional labor required in all interactions and relationships, especially expected of women. In her emotional labor browser extension, you write your message as sort of tersely as you want, and then with the click of a button, it adds in all the emotional niceties and extras for you. And I've been inspired for a long time by work such as the Q sensor, which came out of the Effective Computing group at the MIT Media Lab. And so their research initially started looking at children with ASD and figuring out that you could sort of detect when a child was starting to feel agitated, and perhaps then have a teacher or parent be alerted and intervene. And so this wristband was meant to detect that. And so I was really sort of fascinated by this and thinking, like, I want one of these things. I want like a device that could tell other people, like, Lauren is not doing okay right now. Go change the situation or get away from her. But it also made me think, like, what is this like normal that we're pushing towards, right? Who's to say like exactly what kind of behavior we're expecting, and what is normal and what is outside of that, and how do we fit to that? And so this is a question I was thinking about a lot. Then at the same time, we've got researchers determining that Twitter contains so much information about your relationship status that you can actually build an early breakup predictor. So you could get notified and stock up on ice cream in advance. And I just wonder, like, what happens when our technology can understand us better than we can understand ourselves? And so I was thinking about all this and kind of caught between a genuine curiosity about it and also this like deep fear of where this might lead us. And so in collaboration with Kyle McDonald, I created this project, People Keeper. I'll just show you sort of the trailer for it.
We only have so much emotional bandwidth.
Bring it in.
And limited time.
Mustafa?
Our social circles are widening.
We don't know. That's bad. But
All those relationships
Anything in general that makes you excited.
can be overwhelming. Now there's an app. People Keeper tracks your physical and emotional response while you're hanging out. And it analyzes the data to identify who stresses you out and makes you excited, sad, or happy. See how your relationships stack up. And let People Keeper find the ones that work for you. It'll automatically manage your relationships, so you don't have to. Scheduling time with people that make you feel good. And blocking the ones that don't. Forget fake friends, failed romance, and FOMO. optimize your social life with PeopleKeeper.
Yeah, so it does pretty much exactly what that said. It would pair with a heart rate monitor that you could wear on your wrist, around your chest, and it would detect if you're feeling something. And then if it did, it would ask you for more details about that, and then you would get sort of these views of who makes you feel the most aroused or the most angry. And then it would also go the step further of actually scheduling time or deleting contacts, etc. And the question in my mind was like, what if a computer can actually make better decisions than we can? Because maybe this feels wrong or it feels weird, but like, what if it works, and how do you navigate that? And then who owns the data that exists between two people? And what happens if it's used or shared? So there's this point of confusion that a lot of people have with this app where they ask, like, is this a critical app, or is this actually my vision of the future that I want to see? And I guess the answer is somewhere in the middle. And I think what we're trying to do with this is position it almost directly on the line between the two. It's this ambiguous gray area between a utopic and dystopic vision that's sort of both pleasurable or exciting and uncomfortable at the same time. And the point was to create a space to question, to think about it. And so this was one reason that we went beyond just making a video and actually creating a real app that people have to decide, like, are you going to download this or not? And then how are you going to use it or not? And we also did some trial runs. So at Carnegie Mellon University, at the Studio for Creative Inquiry, we worked with a group of students that used this app over a year. Over a week. Sorry. That was my, I was pushing for the year, but I got vetoed. So they used a special version that would intervene in their Facebook account in addition to the other things that were mentioned in the video, because that was a platform that they were using a lot to interact. So they were around campus for just a week, and these were some of their reactions.
My name's Miles Payton, and I'm a student and teenager.
I'm hoping it'll be informative more than anything.
Gonna kind of remind me, like, hey, you should pay attention to how you're feeling around this person.
Using the app as a justification for not wanting to spend time with someone is a lot more definitive than like just saying, like, I'm uncomfortable.
Very informative in sort of what I was doing and how my interactions with people were either negatively or positively affecting my day.
Well, like the process of going on Facebook and then like finding or like stalking someone on Facebook and then like suddenly seeing like a post that you didn't expect to be there by yourself is sort of funny because it's, you know, challenging your like authorship and like agency in that situation.
What made me angry is the thing that stood out the most, I think. It's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't hang out with Mark. Maybe he's kind of a dick. I don't.
And we also did some other trials in other places. One of them was at the Science Gallery in Dublin, and we made these workbooks to try and help guide people through the experience a little bit more. This one we did more with adults, and also the Irish kind of reacted to the way that the app worked and said, we would never be this like forward about letting someone know they need to stay away from us. So it was sort of interesting to see the cultural differences. I just wanted to share a few slides from the workbook. So the idea was that this was a 1 week kind of workshop or experiment where the people would use the app again, and this time they had kind of activities to guide them along or help them reflect even more on the experience. And this was the key page. And I think, amidst this like rapid technological development and social discourse, it's so easy to dismiss something new with a knee-jerk reaction of like or dislike. But I think the innovations and the societal changes that we're seeing aren't black and white. So to productively move forward, we have to engage with the inherent tensions and questions. And so the goal of PeopleKeeper was to create a space for people to engage and question and kind of decide for themselves how they want to use the app or to live in the world. So I started thinking that maybe the algorithm while there were some interesting aspects of it, wasn't quite living up to everything we wanted it to do in terms of guiding social behavior. And I started thinking about, humans doing that instead. And more specifically, I wondered if I could crowdsource my interactions, or the area I needed the most help, my dating life. So using Mechanical Turk, which you're all familiar with, I set about trying to do this. And so in my case, I paid people 50 cents to watch a few minutes of a live feed of my date that I had streamed surreptitiously to the web, and instruct me what to do and say. So this video gives kind of a feeling of what that was like. The directions would come to me as text messages, and I would have to kind of do or say them immediately. And so this was sort of the view of the page they would see, and I kind of iterated over different ways that they might give me feedback, trying to find the way that actually provided something useful. And these were some of the things that they said. Sometimes they would give more like reflections rather than directions. Yeah, so this is kind of a fun audience because obviously the parameters of the system are really clear to you. But the other system that I was really interested in was like the system of understanding myself and my relationships. Like, what are these boundaries that I put around myself, and what does it mean for other people to have this kind of control over me? Am I being dishonest, or is this more like a collective group of people kind of merging into one? And perhaps that's already a space we are moving towards. And then as surveillance and big data become increasingly ubiquitous, we're forced to negotiate new relationships with it. And I think a common reaction is just sort of fear and unease, but when it's all around us, like, how do we go on with our lives in the face of all that? And so I was thinking about this even more, and in this next project, I kind of went deeper into this kind of embracing surveillance in some way and trying to find a relationship with it. And I became specifically really interested in the idea of following. And I wanted to give others that experience of sort of being watched. And I realized the directions weren't so necessary. Maybe just the knowledge that you're being watched or followed can kind of transform a situation. And so this last project here is called Follower.
Up, I get dressed, I go out, I do things. I read a magazine and I find out about people. Why do I know about their lives? Somebody should be knowing about mine. I want to share things with people, but I don't want to have to talk to people and tell them what I'm doing. I think it'd be great for them to see what I'm doing. It takes time to build relationships. It takes time to touch base with people. So I don't want another relationship. I just want to have a relationship with somebody that I never have to talk to, that can just follow me and see me, having a relationship with myself. If I knew somebody was following me, watching my life, it might add some more fun to my life. I like to play. Doing something for having fun for myself would at the same time create a new experience for somebody else. I think I'm a pretty positive person, and I think that the things I do are with consideration of other people. Who knows what somebody wants to see, but if I bring out the best self of myself, maybe that will spark something in them.
Yeah, so Follower is a service that provides a real-life follower for a day. And in order to be followed, you go to the website and you answer 2 questions. Why do you want to be followed, and why should someone follow you? The responses and reasons people gave were actually kind of all over the place. There were things like, I believe my life has more of an online importance than it does in real life. I get more excitement and happiness from Instagram likes than I do from physical communication. I would really like to shift my presence from the online world to the real world, and having someone follow me would give me some clarification that my life in the real world means more than online. Or, I live a cloistered life in my apartment and office, and when I walk into the world, I feel completely covered in eyes, as if everyone was looking at me. I know they aren't, but I want to know at least one is. So, if you're selected, you are sent an app, a link to an app, and you download it, and it says waiting for a follower, and you don't know when it will happen. But one morning you wake up, and it says your follower is now following you. And the follower begins following, staying just out of sight, but within your consciousness. And the follower was me. So this was like my, naturally. So this is like the view that I had, where I was the little blue dot and they were the red target, and I was kind of running down the block, trying to be discreet and following along behind them. The first performance of this took place in San Francisco, so that's that view there. And then at the end of the day, you get the notification you're no longer being followed, and you get one photo of yourself from sometime during the day that I took of you. And that's it. And so, we're living this weird, anxious time where on one hand, surveillance is pervasive and out of control, and on the other hand, we have this intense desire to be seen, to be followed, to share every intimate detail of our lives. There are sites you can go to where you can buy online followers. $10 can get you 1,000 followers. Or you can find out how real your followers are. But is that desire really fulfilled by watching your follower count tick upward, or could a real-life follower provide something more meaningful or satisfying? And how do we perform when we know or think someone's watching? And does that change when we're talking about physical space, or one individual person versus a crowd of attention-divided people online? And Follower offers surveillance as a luxury experience. This is an app for people that not only have nothing to hide, but need to be seen. Embedded in this offer is the question, who are the people that don't have the privilege of hiding, of not being seen, just because of who they are or what they look like? Yeah, so surveillance has been happening for a while, and I think in the past maybe women felt this gaze more often, but now with the NSA, men are being watched too, it becomes political, and this distinction is sort of demonstrated in this headline from the Atlantic City's blog. He says just some women while snickering, and kind of glossing over the implication that, the alternative of a man following a woman would be completely terrifying and happens often. And I just also found myself asking, how many times have you seen the words just some man in any headline anywhere? And then with the gig economy, it seems like sometimes we're willing to try any app that promises us something novel or convenient or useful. But I think putting an interface between people can be risky. It weakens the connection to the person on the other end. I really like this hashtag, life after chores. But the chores didn't just disappear, someone is doing them. It's just the person that did them has disappeared into this app. Or your app can get someone to sit on a beach and hold a fire pit for you, or come over and kill that bug that's scaring you. And then with Uber TaskRabbit, for example, you push a button and you watch as the person you summoned moves towards your location on a map. And so I wanted to invert this. So the people being followed don't track my location, I track them. And what they get instead is a data point. What they get instead of a data point on a map is the thought that there's a live person there. watching them with care and focus. Yeah, so I'm going to go fast over this. It's hard to get, it can be tricky to get things into the App Store. They have a long list of rules, but the maybe most interesting ones are this is a living document. New apps may result in new rules at any time. Perhaps your app will trigger this. Or we will reject apps for any content or behavior that we believe is over the line. What line, you ask? Well, as a Supreme Court justice once said, I'll know it when I see it, and we think you will also know when you cross it. So basically they can kind of set this boundary of what is possible and what is not. And so I found myself kind of arguing desperately to get this into the App Store and having conversations with App Store representatives where they're kind of saying, I was trying to tell them, it's just an art project, you don't have to worry, it's not a stalker app. They're saying, like, I don't see how this is art as you claim, it sounds more like a social experiment to me. Or they had a problem with my description for the app, and they said, you need to explain to people why they care or want to do something, that you can't expect them to just know or decide themselves. So I had to update my description. And so I found myself trying to explain that there were sort of precedents for this, and that the idea of following wasn't new. Talking about Vito Acconci selecting a random passerby at random and following them until they entered a private space. Or Sophie Calle finding an address book on the street in Paris and calling each person listed in it to ask questions about the owner to discover just who this person was without ever meeting them. Or Jill Majid, who wore, over the period of a month, wore a red trench coat while performing in locations known to be captured on CCTV around Liverpool, and then using subject access request forms. She requested the footage from the Liverpool police, writing as though she were writing to a lover. So I'm thinking about these precedents, but ultimately I want to create different sorts of interactions and relationships than we have normally. I'm wondering, as much as technology might separate us, could it also bring us together in new and interesting ways? And so I sort of wanted to close with just a few moments from the follower performance. People always ask for like big stories, like what was the craziest thing that happened? But really it's like the little moments that really moved me. So the titles here, maybe they're a little hard to read, I'll read them, are taken from the answers to those questions of why do you want to be followed? And the first moment, so the title is, No One Reads My Blog. And then I'll just tell you some reflections from the experience. The first moment of catching sight of my followee was always really exhilarating and surreal. I tried to maintain the right distance from the person so that they might begin to notice me by the end of the day if they paid close attention, so they could have a similar strange and surreal experience. I've always wanted a nonviolent stalker. I didn't want it to be a complete thought experiment. If the person feels they have the chance of seeing me, I hoped it might further heighten their awareness. I want to be seen just for one day. I love the moments where I could be sitting one table over from them in a cafe, wondering if they were wondering if I was their follower. I believe my life has more of an online importance than it does in real life. Some people I would follow on long walks and adventures because I want to tell a story with no words. I want to know how it feels. While others would go straight to their office and never leave, while I sat outside the building thinking about them, watching them move from room to room on the map on my phone. I could really benefit from a little extra support. I found myself really liking everyone I followed. I wondered if this was because they were performing niceness, because they were being watched, or if the act of just paying that close attention to someone over an extended time built this sense of intimacy and feeling for them. I want to be seen just for one day. I was watching them interact with a cashier or look for a place to sit on the BART or just choose something to eat. I'm obsessed with the difference between how I see myself and how the world sees me. There's a lot more to me when given a chance. And I was trying to extrapolate a whole person from that, a whole relationship, just from these moments. Because I'm lonely. We'll skip that. Thanks.